Good afternoon, my friends. Grim here. I hope you're all well today, and I'm coming at you with a Magic the Gathering video. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Well, guess what? Neither did I. This video is about my first impressions of Premodern, a community-created old-school format. I'm going to give you a brief intro explaining exactly what the heck this format is, and again, give you my first impressions. So I have to shout out here Discord member Andreas, who made a fateful post in the Pictures of Cardboard section, posting his Premodern list. And I asked a couple questions about it, and then proceeded down a rabbit hole. So where better to start than by reading the About section here. Premodern is a community-created construction format consisting of the sets from 4th edition to Scourge. The card pool thus roughly spans the period in between the formats 93-94 and Modern. A rule of thumb for the card pool is all cards with the old frame, printed between 1995 and 2003, which were standard legal at some point during this period, are legal. Portal and promo cards are thus not legal. An underlying idea is that the format should be a home for iconic and fun cards that don't see play in other formats, either because their relative power level has withered over time, or because they are not tournament legal due to their interactions with newer cards, like Survival of the Fittest and Vengevine and Legacy. In line with this idea, some cards that are dominant in other formats are banned in Premodern, like Brainstorm and Force of Will, in order to leave other cards room to prosper and to make the format distinct from others. Premodern was invented in 2012 by Martin Berlin as he switched gears from competitive to casual play. At that point, he was into 93-94, but felt that it didn't fully satiate his cravings for old-school Magic. Martin is responsible for maintaining the Banlist, which we're going to take a look at here in a moment. This is a visual representation of all of the sets that are legal. And guys, if you don't love these sets, maybe you're just a different age from me. But for me, with my childhood, I literally started with 4th edition. 93-94, wonky balance, amazing cards, right? I totally love it, but it's a little bit before my time. I was a young kid buying a 4th edition starter set at my LGS, and this is the sweet spot for my nostalgia factor. On top of that, you may have noticed it was implied in that About section, nothing new enters this format. There are no changes. What you see is what you get. You're never going to have new sets added to this. They're never going to take out any sets. The ban list, I suppose, could be tweaked, but it really doesn't seem like that happens very often, if ever, now that they've got it pretty much figured out. The other, so for the people who love innovation, who love the churn of new sets, shaking up a format, and, the opportunities that arise therefrom, I respect that. I respect you for participating in that, but that is not at all possible for me to do any longer with my super busy schedule. I want old school gameplay, and I want expertise that lasts forever once I develop it. I think that's what Premodern can offer. The final thing to mention here is that it's not a specifically recognized set by WotC. You cannot sign up for a Premodern event online. They don't exist. There are community organized events, and I myself already have a few machinations in place where we might organize at least a little bit of gameplay in our own lovely Discord community, and I hope to bring you gameplay videos from this wonderful format. Alright guys, so the ban list, I would call it hardy. I don't think it's overbearing, but it's certainly not sparsely populated either. And that, to me, seems about right. Not because I have any experience or expertise in the format, but because of the patterns I see. So number one, like mentioned in that little intro blurb, cards like Brainstorm and Force of Will that are just too powerful, they would be too ubiquitous, they're too defining of other formats like Legacy, those are banned, and that makes a ton of sense for the aforementioned reasons. But there are other cards that don't necessarily define other formats that are also banned here. Why? Well, to me, it looks like one of two reasons. Either they provide too much consistency. We see a lot of tutor type effects here, and that definitely, in conjunction with Brainstorm being axed, means that there's not as much card selection as a lot of older formats tend to have. And then the other thing is that cards that make the entire game revolve around that card specifically. Maybe Storm, always playing Tendrils of Agony, would be a good example of that, although there is still a Storm deck. And maybe Grim Monolith, just a little bit too powerful and a little bit too oriented around ramping, although there are still decks that ramp. So the idea here is that, and then you have the anti-cards, of course, that have to be banned as well. So the idea here is that whether the criteria is one thing or another, we are striving for balance, and of course we're striving for interactive, non-repetitive gameplay that allows a wide variety of archetypes to shine. And as far as I can tell, just getting my foot in the door here, that seems to be what we have. This is the pre-modern metagame based on those community tournaments. The top deck is Landstill, which is a control deck featuring Standstill, followed closely by Goblins, followed closely by Midrange, The Rock, followed closely by Burn, and then there's an Oath deck, there's Madness, there's Elves, there's another Control, there's another Midrange. So we have all of the major elements represented. And MTG Decks is definitely a great source for the elusive pre-modern lists. So what does a pre-modern list look like, you may ask? Well, allow me to demonstrate. I might have gone a little bit nuts. I bought 4 decks, but guess what? They're dirt cheap online compared to modern, even if I go all in on old borders, as I have. Big fail for Birds of Paradise here in The Rock, which the only old bordered version online is 7th edition foil. They were out of stock, so Bird's cramping my style a little bit here. But yeah, we gotta start out with The Rock. This has got a lot of mid-range play patterns. You've got discard, you've got some removal, you've got X for 1 potential like crazy. But it definitely has some unfamiliar play patterns as well. Wall of Blossoms and Birds of Paradise, not exactly traditional BGX mid-range early threats, as far as I would say. But if you look at the whole deck, it actually makes a ton of sense. After these cards serve their purpose, drawing you out, keeping you alive, ramping you in the case of Birds, they can be sacrificed for the greater good. We've got Cabal Therapy, of course. That's a very powerful use case, but we've also got Pernicious Deed. We can go asymmetrical mode and not care so much about sweeping up 1 or 2 dorks as long as we're wrecking the opponent's bird. Even some stuff, birds as well. Even some stuff at the top end, like Yavimaya Elder, Ravenous Baloth, Blastoderm. These things are kind of born to die, but Recurring Nightmare is a major engine, and we've just got repeated X for 1 potential. A little bit from our land base as well, Treetop Village ×4. Hello, major finisher. And then in the sideboard, we've got a lot of nice interactive threats. It's very mid-rangey. We've got Hate on a Stick in the form of Uktabi Orangutan, Spike Weaver, Ravenous Baloth. We can get Grindier, and then Engineered Plague ×3 to really put a hurt on the weenie decks. Dead Gael is another tier 1 mid-range deck, my friends. 4 times Wasteland, let's go. And it's got a lot more of a traditional mid-range structure from the modern black-based perspective, with one notable exception. We can go Duress into Threat or Gerard's Verdict, which is awesome, or Diabolic Edict, or Disenchant for that matter, into Vindicate and go full curve out, interact, or we can go turn 1 Dark Ritual Phyrexian Arena for massive value generation, or turn 1 Dark Ritual Hypnotic Spectre for massive depletion. This is absolutely fantastic stuff, my friends. We've got a sweet threat suite, and we've got Swords to Plowshares alongside everything else I mentioned for very powerful interaction. And if you look at the sideboard, I mean, we're carrying over a lot of the black cards that are awesome from Rock. We've even got extra color hate in the form of Perish, and then you want to talk about color hate, white has it, especially against red, to an extreme degree. Warmth, Absolute Law, what was that other one I saw? Heroic Passage or something like that. Anyway, these cards are kind of blowing my mind, and Dead Guy Ale looks like a mid-range player's dream. But you know, I'm also a huge Elf respecter, and that's right, Gaia's Cradle ×4 is legal. We're doing legacy things with Wirewood Symbiote, Kyrian Ranger, Priest of Titania, and all of the usual lovely mana dorks. We also have a fascinating prison element here with 4 main deck Tangle Wire, a couple Winter Orb in the sideboard, and as if that wasn't spicy enough, a micro splash for red. Squee Goblin Nabob and Anger both might look a little strange until you realize that this is a survival of the fittest deck, which is just totally nuts. I've goldfished this list a little bit, and let me tell you, the lines are nearly infinite, they're very rewarding, they're very interesting. This deck goes completely crazy, and there are a wealth of options in the sideboard. You can tutor your Hate Bear type cards with Survival, you can go Steely Resolve, Compost, Naturalize, dare your opponent to beat cards like that, and you can even bring in a Goblin Sharpshooter, Squeeze Special Assassin, and totally mop up the mirror. Looks fun to me. You guys know sometimes we gotta go fast, just as fast as elves, while killing them along the way, perhaps. We've got Red Deck Wins, we've got Burn. I've always liked having a Red Deck Wins deck in the back pocket. You've seen me play Prowess and Modern before. This is a very sweet one. We've got Barbarian Ring, which is super cool. The Lava Man, Ball Lightning, Price of Progress, Sulfuric Vortex, Fire Blast. We've got all these 1-mana killer counter a blue thing. Oh my god, it's totally awesome. And then you get to play old kitchen table favorites like Incinerate and Shock and Mog Fanatic, and it's actually pretty good, and just the beauty of these old borders, my friends, really can't be beat. And the final deck that I own for now is arguably the one I was most excited about from the jump. That is Mono Black Pox. You thought the Dead Guy Ale Dark Rituals were intense? Well, here we can go turn 1 Bottomless Pit and start going Depletion Mode, make the OP wish they were never born. Innocent Blood, Cabal Therapy, Duress, Funeral Charm, the Rack, Cursed Scroll, Chain of Smog, Unmask. It is a thing of beauty. Wasteland, Mishra's Factory, Cabal Pit. Beautiful deck, the land base pulling a ton of weight here. And then we've got awesome static hate pieces in the sideboard. Dystopia, Planar Void, Engineered Plague. We've got Perish for green hate. We've got a 4 of Phyrexian Negator for a more aggressive plan, and 2 Ensnaring Bridge, 2 Phyrexian Furnace. Rounding it out, this deck just makes me so happy, although playing against it, not always going to be the most fun. Even I can admit that. Another great pre-modern resource is tcdecks.net, where I'm going to showcase another couple decks that I don't own yet. Perhaps never, but certainly not right now. There's a lot of different combo decks, and none of them seem overbearing, but a lot of them bring really unique things to the table, and there seem to be a dozen, or maybe even 2 dozen, that are relatively viable. This is Phyrexian Devourer combo, this card comboing with either Fling or Altar of Dementia to one-shot the opponent. Just look at the land base. We've got Crystal Vein, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders. This is a very powerful format in many ways, and it's got 24 artifacts. It's also got Tinker for the toolbox, or just to find your combo. Definitely very, very cool, and some cards that I have no idea what they do, frankly, in the sideboard. Sabo's Web, Rushing River, sure, seems fun to me. And then another deck that just in my initial impressions really stood out. This is actually the well-known Pascal Maynard, playing kind of a Protect the Queen threshold deck. My understanding is that it's usually 3-color. He's added the 4th color, but we've got cards that get better with Threshold. There's Werebear, Nimble Mongoose, and Mystic Enforcer. We're taxing out, slowing down the opponent with Winter Orb as we accelerate with Mox Diamond. And then there's a ton of interaction, and this is just demonstrative of the power of the format. Counterspell, Mana Leak, Accumulated Knowledge, Daze. We're playing a lot at instant speed here. We're again cheating on mana in some cases. Fire and Ice, Mental Note, Swords to Plowshares. And then the sideboard is a lot more of the same. Even Sylvan Library is legal in this format, but a lot of these super powerful cards, they don't seem to warp, define, or take over the format. They just see play alongside a lot of other stuff like Werebear. It's actually really cool. One final shout out, something to check out, the Premodcast. I've listened to the first few episodes. It's great. Really giving me a nice intro to the format in addition to the other things I've mentioned. We're looking here, my friends, at Knight of Stromgald. As I close out, I just have to reiterate, Dead Guy Ale is a tier 1 meta deck, and Knight of Stromgald is a core threat. This is exactly what I have always thought I wanted. This is how I played at the kitchen table. Obscenely powerful spells like Dark Ritual, Cabal Therapy, Gerard's Verdict, Vindicate, backed up with quaint, lovable threats like Knight of Stromgald that have some unique character, some unique flavor, and some unique play patterns to them. I'm not looking for gigantic walls of text with a million ETBs that totally render interaction obsolete. I'm looking for a little bit of a hateful mana sink like good old Knight of Stromgald, and this is playable in Premodern, therefore I am going to give Premodern a shot. You guys, let me know what you think about this intro if it's new to you. Let me know if this appeals to you in any way. And of course, if you've dabbled in Premodern, I would love to hear your thoughts below. My initial idea for content, if I can line it up with the community, or with other people outside the community for that matter, is to maybe do a deck feature where, let's say I'm playing Elves, or I'm playing Burn, or I'm playing Pox. Maybe I do 3 matches against 3 different players, or at least against 3 different decks. And I do a little bit of a deck tech at the beginning, a little bit of a wrap-up at the end, just like the old League content. Alternatively, if we want to zero in on a matchup, maybe we could do a best of 5, where it's like, you know, Pox versus Burn or something we really want to test. We do 2 pre-board, 3 post-board games. Any other ideas, my friends, you gotta let me know about them, but this, if there's a way for me to sustain Magic playing, I think this is it. This is my latest gamble, my latest roll of the dice, my latest new realm to explore. If you'd like to explore it with me, give a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks as always to all supporters. Maybe I'll see you soon for our first ever game of Premodern Magic the Gathering. Until then, take care.